Hi friends and everyone, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. This is Blazor for Beginners series, and in this series we're going to talk about how to work with .NET 8 Blazor. This series is actually dedicated for the new ones, the newbies, those who are interested in Blazor and want to learn the basics. So in this video, or in this whole series, we are going to cover the basics of Blazor and how to use them. So in this video, let's talk about introduction to Blazor components and its data binding. So maybe I believe you've heard of Blazor, or you actually know what Blazor is, isn't it? Yeah, for those who do not know Blazor, let me take some few seconds and I'll brush you through the overview of Blazor. You know, Blazor is a web framework developed by Microsoft that enables developers to build an interactive and dynamic web application using C# and .NET instead of relying solely on JavaScript. So Blazor supports both server-side rendering and it has the client-side rendering. The server side is what we call as a Blazor server, and on the client side is what we call as a Blazor WebAssembly. This allows developers to choose the hosting model that best fits the application needs. So if you want to work with Blazor, there are some three concepts that you must understand. The first one is the component-based architecture. Now, the component-based architecture, Blazor applications are built using component-based architecture. It's all about components. Components are self-contained units of code and UI, that is a user interface, that can be reused throughout the application. Components have their own logic, markup, and styles, making them modular and easy to maintain. The second one also is the C# and .NET integration. So Blazor allows developers to write both the client-side and server-side logic using C# and leverage the power of .NET ecosystem. This integration enables code sharing between client and server, reducing the need to duplicate logic. The third one here, that is two hosting models. So Blazor do support server-side rendering and on the client-side rendering. Now the server-side rendering, the application runs on the server. The UI updates are sent to the client using the real-time communication channel. Example is Signal R. And for the WebAssembly, the entire application, including the runtime, is being downloaded from the server onto the client browser, which allows the application to run directly in the browser. So the next one here is also the Razor syntax. You know, Blazor uses Razor syntax for defining components. Then we're asking, what is Razor syntax, isn't it? Don't worry. It is a combination of C# and now HTML that allows developers to seamlessly mix markup and code within a file. So in each component, you can have your UI in there. You can also have your logic beneath, and that's what is known as a Razor syntax. The next one is a data binding. So Blazor support data binding, enable developers to establish connection between the application data and its UI. So for example, if I click on the button, I must wire up an event which is going to get fired as soon as I click on event, and Blazor do support. It supports one-way and two-way data binding. Two-way is when you can edit from the UI and it gets stored. You can also receive it, or now you can also view the same data which has been edited. Alright, one-way is just binding it from maybe the database and I'm displaying it to the UI. But in case I want to edit and I'll see it, I want to type and I'll get a feedback, Blazor also supports this. And the last one here is an event handling. Event handling is very important. This handles user interactions through or using events, similar to the traditional development. So developers can wire up an event handlers in C# to respond to user actions such as button clicks, form submissions, using event callbacks, using actions, and etc. So in the whole video, the whole series, stick around because I'm going to take you through a lot of this for you to get the basic understanding before you tackle any Blazor project. So before you can use or you can have access to Blazor, you must have Visual Studio installed. And I believe as I speak, you have it ready, you have it installed, isn't it? Congratulations for doing that. Now you can see when you click on new project, you have this template. Now what you actually want to focus here, it is a Blazor web app. When you check, you can see we have Blazor WebAssembly, we have the Blazor server. Okay, so that's the server side rendering, we have the client side rendering, and we have this web app. Now what is the actual difference between the web app and now this Blazor WebAssembly or the Blazor server? Blazor web app, it is a unified of the Blazor server and the Blazor WebAssembly. So the combination of these two models form the Blazor app. Now in the Blazor server, you know, all the processes are done on the server, which sends a response to the client. Now from the Blazor WebAssembly, all the runtime and all the projects are being sent on the client browser, which is going to run the whole application in the client browser. So these two models have been combined to form the Blazor web app. Now the Blazor web app, there are some hosting models that we can actually go in for. That is an interactive server. We have the interactive WebAssembly. We have static rendering, and we have the interactive auto. The auto comprises of the interactive WebAssembly and now the interactive server render mode. So with this, I've made a video, and let's check this, the same playlist, and you're going to have a look on that. I also spoke about stream rendering. It's also part of this render mode. So you can just have a look in the playlist. So let's create a project in here for this lesson. Choose Blazor web app, and now here it's going to be demo Blazor component. So this is Blazor web app component, and binding. So we create this project, and let's choose .NET 8. And also for authentication system, we go to select none because we're going to talk about that later on. Okay, now you can see there is the interactive render mode. If you want to actually understand any of these, I have explained them actually on in that video. So check the video description, check the playlist, and you're going to see this in there. But for now, we're going to choose one. Let's choose a server. So what we are going to do it here can be implemented using any of the render modes. Okay, so either it's a server, it is a WebAssembly, or it is an auto. It's still going to work there. Okay, so our link is open on the other screen. Alright, so we have it here. Now the first thing is, how do you create components? You know, Blazor is a component based architecture. It tells you that Blazor is about components. So we can use component to create or to build the application. So when you go to Solution Explorer from here, we have your component in here. So you can see we have folder name as component. That's fine. So that is where you're going to create all your components in. So you can see we have pages and we have layout. For now, let's focus on the pages. So pages, we have example of 4 components being created: counter, error, home.razor, and now weather as well. So these are components. Now you can render these components using the route which is going to be identified or specified on top of this. So for example is, let's go to the counter, or let's go to the home. So if I click on the home component, you know, we have the route displayed or specified on top. We have the page title, and this is the content of the application. Okay, this component. So for now, we are going to learn how to create a component and also how to call a component. So let's see from this solution, the same pages. In order to create components, just right click on the pages folder. Now click on add. You can see we have razor component. So this component, let's have a look. So let's wait for us to get this template installed or loaded. And now choose this razor component. Now give it any name. So the extension here must be .razor. Now here, let's make it as greetings. So greetings.razor, and that's going to be the component that we are creating. Okay, So in order to use this, we can actually type in anything as well and I'll display. Okay, so maybe let's use an H1. So this is from greetings component. Okay, so let's say we have this in an H1 tag. This is from greetings component. So we create this component. How can you use this component? There are many ways of using this component. This component can become or can use as a chart component. It can use as a parent component. Now, if I say a chart component, what do I mean? What I'm trying to say here is this component can be called in other component. Okay, and now when I use it as a parent component means I'm going to specify the route here. When you check this home component, this is a parent component. Why am I saying that? You know, we have a route specified here. It means through the address, when the application runs, we can directly navigate to this component using this address. Okay, and this becomes the parent component. Now, when you go to this greetings.razor, you can see we are not having this address specified, this route specified. So this means this is a chart component. And before you can see this, you must render this component in another component. So with this, we are not going to specify the route here. Let's save this. Let's run this application and see. Alright, so mine is run. As you can see, you have it displayed on the screen. Have you also run yours? You make sure you have, the first time that you run this application, this project, you must have access to internet connection, because you know it needs to update some NuGet packages that it uses as dependencies. So you have to get connected to the internet. Okay, else you're gonna have an error in building it. So make sure you're connected, and that is all. So these are the components, the default one that we're talking about. You can see we can access this through the routes. Now check this through the counter. You can see we have the counter here. That's the route that we specified. Or did we specify it? No, it was defaultly specified. We have this weather forecast, and as you can see, it has been specified in there. When you check the source, you go to solution, then check from the counter. You know, we have this slash counter. We have the greetings here, nothing. We have the home, and as you can see, we have the weather forecast. That's the weather in here. Okay, but the question is, the component that we created, how do you render this? You know, we do not have any route specified here. So one, we can specify the route to become a parent component. Okay, so here, let's see. So at page, then here you put the route name. You make sure that the route name do not correspond or do not look similar to other components route name. So here, this is greetings. You can say this is greetings. Then let's save this. Let's rerun this application again, and now let's check it out. So now with this, we are running this, or going to display this as a parent component because of the route that we are specifying here. Okay, aside from that, you're going to run this as a chart component, meaning we're going to render this component in another component. How do you go about that? Don't worry, let this run. Let's see the output, then we talk about that as well. So the app is ready, and as you can see from here, we can now navigate to slash, what is the name? Greetings, isn't it? So type greetings in address, and I hit on the enter key, and you can see now we have this is from greetings component. You see? So now this page is rendered as, or this component is being rendered as a parent component, because we have specified a route that we can navigate to this component by ourselves. Okay, now let's see how do you render this component as a chart component. We have to first remove the route in here. Let's save it. Let's render this component in the home component. So click on the home component, and in here maybe we can put it down here. So just call the name as greetings component. Okay, so just call the name like this, save it, refresh the page, and that is all. Let's see if we have auto refresh. Click on the home. Yes, and because we have this greetings, this from greetings component. So you can see from the same component, how many components do we have here? We have this, the first component, and we have this is what the second component. Now the home component is a component by itself, and we have another component being displayed in here. So when you check the source, you can see we have this another component that we are displaying, and then this home.razor is also a component. But in this time round, these greetings become the chat component, which is being called in a parent component known as which one? Home. That's fine. I believe this is clear. That's great. So maybe you'll be asking yourself, but what if in case I want to supply a value from this component, from the parent component to this chat component? You know, here we having this from greetings components, right? And we want to actually maybe cast this, and we want to supply maybe data from this component, the parent component, to the chat component. I will actually have a video on that, on how to provide or how to supply data from parent to chat, or actually data or component communication. There are so many ways to communicate data from parent to chat, so I'll teach you this in a subsequent video. But for now, let's learn how to create components, how to also render component by itself as a parent component, or how to render this component as a chat component in another component. So you know how to create component, isn't it? You know how to also render component by itself, as a parent, by defining the route as we did, and also by using it as a chat component, calling this component in the main or any component at all as a chat component. That's fine. Now let's talk about data handling. How do Blazor components handle data? So you know, data binding in Blazor allows you to establish a connection between your application's data and the user interface. So Blazor supports two ways. That is a one-way data handling. That is one, displaying only the data, and now two-way bindings. That is updating the data based on the user input. Let's explore data binding in Blazor with an example here. So we go to the same home page here, and now with this we're going to have a button. Maybe let's see. So first of all, you know, we spoke about the key features and what is the Blazor syntax. When we talk about Blazor syntax or the Razor syntax, it's about the UI and now the code. Okay, so we have the code in here, and now to write anything you must have this code block, and this is the container that every code must come in as a C# code. Okay, now what you see from here are your UI, so user interface. This is going to be rendered to the UI, to the person as a client. Now here is going to be the actual code, and in case user want to interact with the code, he's going to click on the button from the UI here, and now this code is going to handle all the user interactions. Okay, so here let's see. Let's declare a property to tell the user something, right? So you're going to have string. Okay, so this is string, and you know the string is the data type, and with this we're going to say message. So we say message is equal to, so hello, welcome to your first Blazor. Let's make it particles. Okay, so we have this in here. Now with what you have, we have a string created as a message, and now we have a data or the value assigned to this variable, isn't it? Good. So with this value that you have, anytime that we call this message variable, we're going to have its value. One way data binding, what can you do? On top here, let's see. So I'm going to say this is H2. This is one way data binding. Now one way data binding is only displaying the message, displaying something to the user. So the value of this have been set already, and we want to display the message or the value of this variable to the user. So in order to do that, we can just very simple one. So let's make an H3. Then we call this message. So bear in mind that anytime that you want to call the message from this component from a code, you must have this Razor syntax. That's an @ symbol. So you have to get it. So let's grab this and we can paste this here. Okay, so this means that when this page gets rendered, we're going to see this message on the screen, and that is a one-way data binding. You know, here we are just displaying the message to the user. That's all that we are doing. let's run this and see. So save this, and now let's check it out. So you can see this is one-way data binding, and now we have hello, welcome to your first Blazor practicals. You see, so here we cannot edit it, we cannot do anything here because the value has been set from the code, and what to do here is just display them on the screen. Very simple one. Okay, let's have a look on the two-way data binding. So I'm gonna just make a copy here. So down here, and instead of the one way, it's gonna be two ways. So two-way data binding means the user can input something and now get displayed on the screen. We're going to use the same message variable here. When the page load defaultly, we're going to have this one way. Aside from that, you're going to have input. So this input, we're going to bind it. So in order to bind it, you're going to use this at bind value. Okay, so that's a C# way of binding a value, a variable to an element. So in here, which variable do you want to bind it, and that is a message. So let's type it message here, and this message is the variable that we have created down here. So anytime or anything that we specified into this input is going to be stored here. Maybe asking yourself, or maybe asking me, well, we do have a default value set here, so the new one coming in, what's going to do? Yes, it will just come and clear this one, and I replace the new one. So anytime that you pass in a message, it's going to clear the default one and now set the new one to it. Okay, now let's see. And now for this, let's have this class form control from a bootstrap to render this form nicely for us. Okay, now let's save this and let's rebuild this application and see. So the app is now rendered, and you can see that here we have this text box being rendered, long one here, right? And now the value that you have, hello, welcome to your first Blazor practicals, have been rendered in here as a value. Why? Because of this bind. So bind value. It means we are binding the context of this to this input. So if this input, if this variable has a value already, it's going to be bound to this element. We can also override this element through it. So let's see. Now this is what we are doing. When we open the same app, if I clear this, see what's going to happen. If I clear this and if I start to type in something, so maybe so I have a new test. Okay, so now with this new test, we have this variable here which is being bound to this. Now let's see, when we go to the code, so you can see that we have the value change, but it is not displayed on the screen. Although we have this two-way binding, we are binding this value to this element. Anytime that the variable to this element, anytime that we update the value of this input or this also must get changed because we are displaying it in here. But it's not doing that. You can see from here, if I clear even this one, this must even be cleared, but it is not doing that. The reason is, when you check this, this page is being rendered in a static mode, so that's a static rendering, and static rendering does not support any bind or any action unless it is interactive. So let's have a render mode, and I'll send this a server. I want to say interactive server. So if you want to understand this, I have a video done on this. Check the same playlist and I'll link it in the video description. Understand the render mode in the new .NET 8 Blazor web app. Okay, that's the first thing that you must tackle before you come to the other ones as well. Okay, so we have this here. Then now let's see. Okay, so it has been rendered. Now I'm going to clear this. Now see what happened. Watch this one. What's going to happen here? I've cleared this one, and I can see it's still there, isn't it? So let's say this is the first. Now it's still there, isn't it? Because we need to build it ourselves. Since we've changed this into active as a render mode, let's rebuild this. Okay, so first of all, when we cut this, it means we have this as empty. As soon as this text box loses its focus, it's going to get this affected. See, it will say this off. Now let's type in something. This is a new text. Now you see we have it displayed here, right? So this is the two-way binding. As soon as I type in here, it gets notified. So type, and as you can see, it gets being displayed in here. So that's a way to handle two-way binding. So if you're thinking of having an input text box whereby you need to type in and also retrieve or display the value that you type instantly, then you go in for the two-way binding. Now, if you want to display the value set from the code, maybe you want to display data from the database to the screen, it is a one-way binding, because here you do not need to set it. You are just calling the data from an API or from the database and are displaying on the screen. In such case, you're going for the one-way binding. All right, so that's the way Blazor works, right? We spoke about the Blazor component, how to create component, how to render component as parent or as child, how to also perform data binding using the one-way or the two-way data binding. I believe you guys love it, right? Good. So there are lots in there that you need to talk about. So for now, go through this a couple of times to get the better understanding, and I'll see you in the next video where we're going to talk about another concept in Blazor, Blazor project, Blazor web app. That is. So then, take care, and I make sure to subscribe to also receive more of this informative content as well. Take care, and I'm going to catch you up in the next video.